What's going on, everybody? It's Sean, and I'm back this time to check out a found footage film that I'm still not quite sure how I feel about it.
Help, help, char-man! So we gave him a gift.
Char-Man from 2019, written, directed, and starring Kurt Ella and Kip Triple, is a story of two friends and a cameraman going into Ojai to film, I wouldn't say a mockumentary, because a mockumentary would know, it's kind of like you're in on the joke. This is just a straight up fake documentary about the Ojai vampire. And then they soon realize that there's an even scarier urban legend up there in the Char-man, and then everything turns real. I might have said this in another video, but found footage is kind of a guilty pleasure for me. Usually the things I watch are a couple of years old, so when I saw that this film was made in 2019, I was like, yeah, let's give this a shot. Char-man starts with Cameron and Eric planning to shoot a found footage film based on the Ojai vampire, but it's supposed to be a total bullshit paranormal investigation type film, like, Ghost Adventures. Yeah, I'm calling you out. They interview and hire Andy, a cameraman, because he worked on other paranormal films and shows. I didn't realize they were shooting on an iPad until they got to Ojai, and I saw the cameraman's reflection in the mirror in the bathroom. You could see that, like, their whole setup. Come on, guys. You couldn't shoot it on anything else? Like, all you could use was an iPad? I'm running on what people would probably consider, like, beyond a shoestring budget, and my setup is better than that. The guys make it to the house they're renting and joke around a little bit, play around a little bit with that creepy doll Richard, and then get to work on their fake documentary. Apparently they're going all out and ordering coffins for the fake vampire den, but you're not going to go all out on the camera equipment. While in Ojai, they make the rounds visiting what should be the locations of where the Ojai vampire was based, but now it's a park with a road running through it, and tennis court, and amphitheater and stuff. So now they're doing their best to find another location where they can, quote unquote, discover the Ojai vampire's nest with all the coffins. They get to a bridge and claim it's the Ojai Vampire's bridge, where apparently the vampire would lure kids to his bridge under the pretext that he was a toy maker. When Cameron throws the Richard doll over the bridge, when Eric goes to retrieve it, the doll is completely gone. I know. Right now, none of this has anything to do with the Char-man. We get a little bit more backstory on the Ojai vampire as the guys are sitting around trying to work things out and figure out what shots they need to get. During the second act, things start to pick up. Creepy occurrences are happening around the house. Randomly, the faucets turn on while they're sleeping, and there's a rotten smell that fills the house. Going outside to find where the smell may be coming from, they find the Richard doll hanging in a tree. Eric just thinks the guys are screwing with him, so he goes back in and goes to sleep. The next morning, they go to meet with Kent Bridwell, a local historian, played by Jeff Kobler, who you may know from New Girl, The Walking Dead, Sons of Anarchy, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or my personal favorite, Kindred the Embraced. He informs them that what they already know about the Ojai vampire is pretty much all that's already known about the Ojai vampire, but he then tells them the story of the Char-man.
A lot of Ojai was burned.
Okay.
After the fire, a lot of the townspeople went around and made sure that everyone was okay. They neglected to visit one house south of the town proper where a father and his son lived. And when the authorities finally arrived, they found the father hanging from a tree, and all the skin had been stripped from his body. And as they were looking around for the son, he came running out of the woods, screaming, "Help, help," horribly disfigured and burned himself, and with strips of his father's skin draped over his body.
Surprise! The bridge they went to was actually the Char-man's bridge, and if you go to it after dark and say help like 3 times or whatever, he'll come and strip off your skin. They go back to the bridge that they now know is the Char-man bridge to restart this whole documentary with a whole new focus on the Char-man now. During their whole documentary spiel, they say help a bunch of times, and Cameron sacrifices Richard to the Char-man, again by throwing him off the bridge instead of holding on to him so they can just cut and insert a shot. So Eric is pissed once again. So Eric goes down, looks for the doll again. He's completely furious. It's not there. He goes back to the car. So Cameron, feeling guilty, goes down, looks for himself. Still can't find it. They go home. Arriving back at the house, they find Richard placed by the front door. Eric thinks they're all just playing a big joke on him, which they are not. That night, we get our first jump scare in the form of a little girl in a mask looking through the window. Obviously, they get freaked out because, kids in horror movies are fucking creepy. They go outside to check on the girl and tell her to leave when she disappears, and they hear some sort of weird growl. and run back into the house. The next morning, they call the cops only to have them basically blow them off, which wouldn't happen to 3 white guys in Ojai, California, but the cops tell them unless they've been hurt or someone steals something, there's nothing they can do. I get what they're doing. Alright, the cops and probably the entire town are in on this whole char-man thing, and any mention of it, they're like, I want nothing to do with it. The next night, they wake to find the creepy girl standing in the doorway with the front door wide open. With the footage of the girl in the doorway, they call the cops again, but they get blown off again. This is where Cameron has the right idea to just leave. Cameron starts off the film as kind of like the group's, like, top asshole, but it's at this exact moment that you realize he's probably the smartest person in this entire film. Cameron wants to leave, but Eric and Andy want to stay because of the money that can be made from this. Cameron doesn't care. He just wants to leave. But the gate won't open, so they make a deal. Since the groundkeeper isn't answering, they'll walk into town with the footage of the break-in, go to the cops, and then after that, go find someone to fix the gate. This seems like a perfectly fair trade. So they head into town, and they note that there are a lot of clothing stores and places to eat, but not much else if you need some sort of help. Nobody, not even the cops, will give them the time of day. A yoga instructor tells Eric to fuck off, and a girl on a cell phone won't even look at them. Well, I mean, that just seems normal. They find a locksmith who, upon learning there are filmmakers in town working on Char-Man, he decides to just close up shop early. But you know what? Fuck you, buddy. We will take our business absolutely nowhere else because there's nothing else in this goddamn town. They get a call from the groundskeeper that the gate's fixed, so they head back to the house. Cameron doesn't even want to step foot on the property, telling Eric to just go get the car. Somehow Cameron gets talked into staying and recording the entire incident, and then in the morning, they'll all leave. So with the iPad, 2 cell phones, and the shittiest flashlights, they sit and wait for these people to arrive and try to scare them or whatever again. While they're all in the living room waiting, the kitchen faucet turns on and 3 little girls are standing in the window wearing masks. They give chase and find the girls on what I guess is the groundskeeper's property, and when they get close to them, they start yelling help. And I'm assuming that all the guys ran away, but we only see Andy's perspective and he gets knocked out. Cameron and Eric find Andy in the morning. They help his ass up and get him the fuck out of Ojai, because that is the smartest thing you can possibly fucking do after what just happened. Cut to 18 months later when Eric and Cameron are doing a live Q&A when Cameron realizes that the iPad's at 10% power. Eric leaves to go grab a plug, and off screen you can hear a thud. So Cameron leaves to go check on Eric. Off screen, Cameron is attacked by Andy. We know this because he says,
Andy, why are you... Hey, why... Whoa!
His lifeless body is then dragged back into frame, and Andy stands there with his back to us until it cuts to black. I say all the time, all you have to do is go out there and make stuff. And honestly, I gotta give them props for doing that. Maybe they didn't have the budget for a camera. However, as novel as the idea of filming on a iPad is, it's actually a severe hindrance. The audio, honestly, is fine. I'm really surprised. I saw on their setup that they had, it's probably like the Rode Go mic. They had a mic like that hooked into it. But sometimes their audio is like nice and crisp, so it kind of makes me feel like they might have had like lav mics that they had plugged in, like wireless lav mics, if anything. I don't really know, but the audio was good. It's just the visuals were complete and utter trash. And you know what? I can understand that you want to keep the budget like as low as possible, if that's even the case. However, DSLRs and mirrorless cameras are super cheap. Good ones, like good ones to film this that are better quality than an iPad, are super cheap. Right now I have a Lumix G7 that I'm filming on. Autofocus isn't great. You probably want to go with a Canon, but still, like, for what your purposes were, you could have gotten much better visual quality than an iPad. And then there's the lenses. You don't need a full lens kit to shoot something like this. You probably could have gotten away with like one zoom lens with a consistent aperture of like 2.8 and been completely fine and gotten like really good low light footage. And honestly, it would have made the night scenes look 1,000 times better. It would have made even the night scenes inside the living room that was terribly lit 1,000 times better. But all in all, it's really not that bad of a movie. Yeah, there's some hurdles you just gotta like go through. For me, besides the visuals, I thought it was gonna be another Bad Ben situation, which I will cover that later. I figured they were filming on their cell phone because the quality was like super grainy in a lot of the parts. But it was an iPad, so it's whatever. I think an even bigger problem is the fact that it was super predictable. But other than that, I probably would check it out. I recommend seeing Char-Man.